Fenrir, an S-class monster capable of wiping out an entire village, appeared one day, and the terrified villagers quickly hired an adventurer party known as the Flaming Dragon Fang. The party had 4 members, though one of them was already hiding from the monster when it attacked. Hardly heroic. Fortunately, the others swooped in, rescued him, and after a bit of messy teamwork and probably a few bruises they'd rather not talk about, they managed to bring the beast down. The group consisted of Bandana the Ranger, Marlfist the Priestess, Galnova the leader, and young Kurt, the so-called handyman who was more of a glorified errand boy. After the quest, Bandana casually mentioned Kurt's last meal duty, which sounded far more ominous than expected. To Kurt's surprise, it turned out he was fired. The party had deemed him completely useless and was ready to replace him with someone more competent. His attempt to protest earned him a beating instead of sympathy. Crestfallen, Kurt wandered off to Samila City and sought work at the Hello Hello workstation, a name that already hinted he was in for trouble. There he met the receptionist, Chriselle, who explained the process: aptitude tests and interviews. Aptitudes ranged from rank G, basically hopeless, to SS, basically legendary. People couldn't pursue jobs they lacked aptitude for, which sounded like bad news for Kurt. Sure enough, Kurt's results came back with every single combat skill at rank G, the absolute bottom. He failed his combat aptitude test so spectacularly that Chriselle suggested trying his luck with trade skills instead, though the technician needed for testing was out of town for a week. With no money left, Kurt's options were slim. Out of pity, Chriselle asked him to lift some sandbags, and impressed by his ability, she got him a temporary job helping repair the border town's walls. Kurt obediently followed the foreman's instructions, but when the foreman returned, he was stunned by the work. The foreman gave money and a promise to send more to his account. After 3 days, not only had Kurt completed the repairs in record time, but he had also improved the walls beyond what anyone expected. The foreman paid him well, but having run out of work, promptly told Kurt not to come back. Perhaps the only man in history fired for being too good at fixing walls. Back at the agency, Chriselle informed Kurt that he still had a few days before the next aptitude test. It was then that Yulicia, a former adventurer turned reluctant mine owner, arrived seeking help to prove her mine's profitability before her inheritance was taken away. Kurt offers to help, and with little choice she accepted Kurt's offer to help, though her budget was laughably small. As Kurt left, Chriselle jokingly imagined him working in a host club. Another receptionist tells that the foreman transferred a handsome payout for Kurt's services, only Chriselle to nearly faint and stumble over sandbags when another receptionist revealed that the sandbags Kurt lifted were enchanted to get heavier depending on the user's mana. Trying it herself, Chriselle realized there was something very unusual about Kurt. Meanwhile, Kurt and Yulicia set up camp near the mine. Kurt, clearly nervous about sharing a tent with a cute girl, making Yulicia flustered. Yulicia then offered him food, something no one in his old party had ever done. He happily ate, touched by the simple act of kindness. That night, he couldn't sleep because she was lying next to him, only for Yulicia to reveal that she was testing him. The next morning, to her surprise, he had slept outside and even repaired her clothes while she rested. Kurt then suggested finding a spot for digging, which he located immediately, and before long he unearthed valuable crystals. With a naivety that was almost comical, Kurt casually transformed them into powerful magic stones, leaving Yulicia both impressed and horrified at how profitable his normal work was. Yulicia returned to town with the stones while Kurt continued working. At the gate, guards questioned her possession of the magic stones, but she got through by flashing her old Royal Adventurer license. Visiting Mimiko, the local magic shop owner, she expected a modest sum but was instead handed a mountain of gold. Mimiko, who was also a court mage, immediately recognized the value of the stones and asked about the creator. When Yulicia kept quiet, Mimiko pushed harder, offering to fund a magic research atelier with the mysterious craftsman as its director. She insisted Yulicia sell exclusively to her and keep the maker's identity hidden, as magic stones were too important to be left to amateurs. Confused but cautious, Yulicia returned to Hello Work, where both she and Chriselle shared the same burning question: just who was Kurt? Using her Royal Adventurer status, Yulicia forced Chriselle to show his file. It turned out Kurt had indeed been part of Flaming Dragon Fang, but every combat skill of his was officially recorded at rank G. Worse, or funnier, she also discovered that the foreman had fired him after 3 days of miraculous construction work but still paid him 200 gold coins for his trouble. Adding her own share, Yulicia deposited another 499 gold into Kurt's account, though she decided to keep his true abilities hidden to protect him and also forbade Chriselle from telling anyone about Kurt. When she finally returned to the mine, Yulicia was greeted with yet another shock. Kurt had already built a fully furnished house as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When she asked him about it, Kurt innocently explained that back in his village, building a house overnight was perfectly normal. The flaming Dragon Fang struggled to complete quests, and their efficiency mysteriously dropped after Kurt's dismissal and his replacement with another adventurer. Bandana knew deep down that the party was done for. Meanwhile, Yulicia told Kurt about Mimiko's tempting offer, a position as director of the Magic Academy along with noble status. But Kurt refused, insisting he still wanted to work for Yulicia, and admitting that part of him still longed to return to Dragon Fang. He then excitedly mentioned finding a good digging spot. When Yulicia asked if he had rested, Kurt casually replied that he had slept 6 hours. Yulicia couldn't help but wonder when on earth he had found time to finish building the cabin, while Kurt thought maybe he had overslept, since back in Dragon Fang, he used to get only 4 hours of rest. Kurt then took her to the digging site before wandering off to another area himself. After some effort, Yulicia struck gold, or rather a valuable crystal, and proudly went to check on Kurt, only to discover he had dug an entire tunnel. Inside, Kurt complained that he hadn't found anything worthwhile, just useless rocks like mithril. To Yulicia, mithril was an extraordinary find, but to Kurt it was the mineral equivalent of pocket lint, something so common in his village that he barely paid attention to it. He explained he was actually searching for orichalcum, a mineral so rare that most considered it a myth. Even so, he managed to dig straight through a mountain in a few hours like it was no big deal. 2 days later, Kurt returned to town, leaving the tunnel open. Yulicia wasted no time turning it into a toll road, charging travelers to pass through and earning enough to pay her taxes. Meanwhile, Kurt met Bandana, who revealed she too was no longer part of Dragon Fang. She didn't tell him that Galnova had thrown a fit over missing Kurt's cooking, caused chaos, and ordered her to bring Kurt back, and later got himself arrested by knights. Instead, she claimed Galnova had kicked her out as well, then cleverly convinced Kurt to work for Atelier Meister Ophelia. During a discussion with Yulicia, Mimiko revealed the staggering value of the mithril and orichalcum Kurt had unearthed. Yulicia agreed that Kurt should become an Atelier Meister so the kingdom could protect and monitor him, though Kurt himself remained hilariously oblivious to his overpowered abilities. Yulicia reveals Kurt was a member of Dragon Fang, and Mimiko says that his former leader, Galnova, is now a wanted fugitive thanks to his destructive temper. Kurt soon arrived at the atelier and was welcomed by the assistant, who led him straight to the kitchen. The place looked like it had survived a cooking apocalypse, but Kurt cleaned the disaster zone spotless in just 30 minutes. While tidying up, he met a young girl named Lieselot and quickly noticed a curse mark on her stomach. Realizing the curse might be eating her from the inside and causing her hunger, he decided to cook something for her. Just then Ophelia appeared. When Kurt mentioned Lieselot, Ophelia sharply forbade him from speaking about her and handed him money, telling him to return the next day. Secretly, Ophelia had been struggling to suppress Lieselot's curse for years, only ever managing to slow it down. As Kurt's cooking tempted the starving girl, Ophelia tried to test it for poison first. But for the first time since the curse began, Lieselot said she wanted to trust someone, Kurt. Ophelia allowed her to eat the rice porridge, only for Lieselot to suddenly collapse. Ophelia panicked, believing the food had poisoned her. Instead, to her shock, Lieselot stood up moments later, curse completely gone, healed by nothing more than a bowl of rice porridge. Elsewhere, a mysterious man informed his superior that Lieselot's curse had been broken, and they quickly decided to move on to their second plan. Meanwhile, a stunned Ophelia rushed Lieselot to Mimiko. Mimiko and Yulicia are surprised to see that the girl was actually the third princess, Lieselot, who was ill. Ophelia reveals that Lieselot was not ill but has been cured. Lieselot is the daughter of the king of Homurus and his second wife, the princess of the Gurumak Empire. Her very existence kept peace between the two nations, and her death would almost certainly plunge them into war. When Mimiko asked how she had broken the curse, Lieselot simply replied that it was all thanks to a man named Kurt, leaving both Mimiko and Yulicia completely floored. Mimiko suggests 3 possible suspects behind Lieselot's curse: General Sanova Ristkatz, Bishop Tristan Maynolf, and Queen Isadora, the king's third wife. Unfortunately, none of them could be ruled out. Each was fully capable of harming Lieselot. To draw out the culprit, Ophelia decides to open a fictional atelier where Lieselot will officially go for her required magical training. Of course, this plan needs someone to act as the Atelier Meister. When Yulicia shows Ophelia the magic crystal Kurt had made, Ophelia is stunned by its quality. Naturally, Kurt is chosen as the Meister, even if he has no idea what's going on. Kurt returns to Ophelia's palace the next day, only to find the place closed. The assistant girl casually tells him that Ophelia went out somewhere after he left yesterday. Feeling aimless, Kurt goes to eat at a tavern, where he overhears an adventurer party panicking about their quest because their porter has suddenly fallen ill. Kurt offers to help, but they dismiss him, saying they need someone strong enough to lift heavy loads. To prove himself, Kurt quite literally lifts 2 adventurers at once, because apparently that's his idea of a resume. Impressed and maybe slightly terrified, the party hires him. The group is called Sakura and consists of Kanz the warrior, his sister Sina the ranger, and Danzo the samurai leader. When they arrive at the quest location, Kurt is immediately attacked by a slime but fails to kill it. He braces for scolding like he always got from Dragon Fang, but instead the Sakura members calmly tell him not to worry, fighting is their job. While hunting iron golems in a dungeon, the party discovers signs of goblins and soon enough they are ambushed. Kurt also stumbles across a hidden passage, so Kanz and Danzo stay behind while Sina escorts Kurt to safety. Kurt quickly realizes Sina wants to fight too, but is stuck babysitting him instead. Unfortunately, the two run into a group of iron dragon golems. Meanwhile, Yulicia and Lieselot visit Kurt's place only to find it empty. Bandana secretly tips them off about his location, and Lieselot insists on going with Yulicia. Following Kurt's very obvious scent, Lieselot manages to track him all the way into the dungeon. There they witness the Sakura party barely holding out. Sina is convinced they are doomed, as her brother and Danzo prepare to sacrifice themselves. Just when it seems hopeless, Kurt confidently steps forward and tells her not to worry, he'll take care of the golems. Sina's jaw nearly drops off when Kurt single-handedly dismantles the iron golems using nothing but his knife, calling it mining. Even Yulicia arrives in time to confirm that everyone else is safe. Afterward, Yulicia explains to Kurt about the Atelier plan and says she'll be working there as a bodyguard. She officially hires Kurt as a worker, though on paper he's listed as the Meister. She also extends the offer to Sakura, suggesting they could serve as security. To finalize everything, Yulicia insists that Kurt take an aptitude test and sends him to Mimiko for evaluation. Later, while Kurt celebrates with Sakura, Mimiko shares the results with Yulicia. She lies to Kurt, telling him he's only a mid-rank handyman when in reality his abilities are immeasurable. The system used to measure skill only goes up to SS rank, but Kurt's power breaks the scale entirely, making him the unheard of SSS rank. Mimiko sighs, saying it's lucky they took Kurt's test in secret, because if word got out, chaos would follow. Unfortunately, Chris Hell accidentally overhears them. Seeing no other option, Yulicia and Mimiko intentionally reveal Kurt's abilities to her, warning that knowing this information makes her a walking target. Mimiko and Ophelia decide to open the Atelier in a frontier town located at the edge of the kingdom, which also serves as a military base against demon forces. While the Sakura members are excited about their new roles, Sina remains unconvinced and continues to suspect Yulicia and Lieselot. Upon reaching the town, Kurt recognizes it as the same place whose walls he once repaired. After their arrival, Yulicia shows them the Atelier's location, only to reveal that it's just an empty plot of land, and then casually asks Kurt to build one. Kurt points out that it's impossible in a single day, but confidently claims he can finish it in 3 days. While Kurt begins single-handedly constructing the Atelier, Yulicia takes the others to the inn. She gathers them in one place, where Sina demands to know if Yulicia is finally going to reveal the truth about Kurt, the man who single-handedly demolished an army of iron golems as if they were paper dolls. Yulicia then explains both her and Lieselot's true identities and why Kurt must remain ignorant of his overpowered abilities. Sina dislikes the idea of lying, but Yulicia argues that Kurt is so naive that villains could easily exploit him. Therefore, it will be their responsibility to guard both Kurt and Lieselot. Sina storms off, determined to tell Kurt the truth, but is left speechless when she finds he has already completed the groundwork for the Atelier. Kurt simply shrugs, saying that back in his village, it was normal to build several houses in no time. Sina tries to warn him that Yulicia and Lieselot might be taking advantage of him, but Kurt insists he's happy here. After all, people actually thank him for his work, unlike his old party who treated him like useless baggage. Finally understanding Yulicia's desire to protect Kurt, Sina admits they are friends and leaves. Meanwhile, Bandana informs Danzo that the Sakura party was targeted by a contract saboteur named Bibinok, the same man who lured them into the Iron Golem quest that nearly killed them. Danzo tracks Bibinok to a restaurant, where the saboteur is already plotting to target Lieselot. Bibinok tries to flee, but Danzo catches him, threatens him within an inch of his life, and ultimately spares him. Shortly afterward, Bibinok is arrested by Phantom Mimiko's secret police. At the same time, Bandana receives new orders from her master to investigate Kurt's hometown. Elsewhere, the Marlfist Dragon Fang's priestesses are found lying unconscious on a strange magic circle. Back at the frontier town, the Sakura members are utterly flabbergasted when Kurt, in just 3 days, completes an atelier more luxurious than a noble's mansion, complete with gardens, a self-generating water source, flameless lighting, and lavish bedrooms. When everyone asks which room is Kurt's, he casually replies that he can sleep anywhere. It takes them 2 whole hours of persuasion before Kurt reluctantly agrees to use the Meister's room, at least until the real Meister arrives. Yulicia then asks Kurt if he can also construct an anti-curse barrier. Kurt admits it's a bit too difficult for him, so with Mimiko's talismans, Yulicia sets up anti-curse wards around the Atelier to keep Lieselot safe. However, by morning, she is horrified to discover the barriers have been scrubbed away, by none other than Kurt himself, who thought they were ugly graffiti. With no materials left to re-establish the wards, Yulicia realizes she will have to personally protect Lieselot until Mimiko arrives in a few days. For the Flaming Dragon Fang's recent failures, Marlfus is excommunicated by Bishop Tristan but is offered forgiveness and even promotion if she completes one last task. He offers her a drink, and the moment she takes it, she collapses. The bishop calmly declares that her task is to assassinate Lieselot. To ensure obedience, he curses her with the same spell he had placed on the princess, telling her she can drink water but will only live for one more month unless she succeeds. When she wakes up, she finds a demon lord waiting beside her. Back at the Atelier, Yulicia assumes attackers still don't know about Lieselot's location since nothing has happened for days. She reveals that Mimiko has returned and placed a magical web that will instantly capture anyone daring to attack. Just then, Kurt cheerfully reveals they don't have to worry about curses anymore. Another assassination attempt had already failed. His barrier around the Atelier reflected the curse back at the caster, leaving the poor assassin glowing like a human lantern but still alive. Yulicia hurries to report this to Mimiko and Ophelia, but before the would-be assassin can be arrested, he is murdered for his failure. Meanwhile, Kurt suggests Lieselot should go shopping since she hasn't stepped outside since arriving, but she declines with a sad expression. The town's knights begin to sense something ominous, and soon a horde of undead approaches. General Alriad, the garrison commander, and the same man who supervised Kurt's earlier repair work, is stunned when the undead army is instantly destroyed by the town walls Kurt had reinforced with purification magic. Word of this miracle quickly reaches Mimiko and the others. Elsewhere, the demon lord, Tristan's new master, uses Marlfus magic to summon yet another undead army. Learning of the attack, Yulicia tells Kurt and Lieselot to stay at the Atelier, assuring them she'll clean up the ruin. When Kurt insists on coming, she firmly asks him to stay and protect Lieselot. Yulica and Mimiko then meet with knights to discuss the plan to rain ruin, and Alriad agrees to help on one condition. He'll fight alongside her, leaving command to his vice-commander. Yulicia then departs with Alriad, using Kurt's magic crystals to fight the horde. To everyone's astonishment, one crystal instantly purifies dozens of undead, giving them a path to the ruin. Meanwhile, Kurt feels useless and distracts himself by blacksmithing. He forges a smaller version of Danzo's samurai sword, which he considers a failure. When Lieselot finds him, he gives her the blade. Kurt finally asks her if people are really after her, and she admits that they are, and that Yulicia is risking her life for her right now. Misunderstanding completely, Kurt assumes she's afraid of the graffiti vandal, whose work he had erased earlier. Feeling disheartened because he can't fight to protect those precious to him, he sighs. But Lieselot, clutching the sword, declares she wants to stand up for herself. Hearing that Yulicia has gone to clean up the ruins, Kurt decides to take Lieselot there to confront the culprit. Lieselot points out that all paths are crawling with undead, but Kurt grins and says he'll just make a new road. Meanwhile, Yulicia and Alriad find themselves completely surrounded by undead. Lieselot prepared herself and decided to test the sword Kurt had made. While Alriad and Yulicia continued battling the endless undead, their supply of crystals dwindling dangerously low. Alriad was injured during the fight, but just in time the Sakura party arrived, cutting through the horde and creating an opening for Yulicia and Alriad to enter the dungeon. Yulicia gave Alriad some of Kurt's soup, which healed him instantly, proving once again that Kurt's cooking worked better than most healers. The demon lord, impressed with their persistence, decided to confront Yulicia and Alriad directly. Yulicia and Alriad confront the demon lord. They use a magic stone and fought fiercely, cutting him down, even beheading him at one point, but nothing worked. The demon lord smugly declared his plan to kill everyone present and then go after Lieselot. His invulnerability came from a magic circle fueled by Marlfus' power, which also drained her life force. Realizing she might die, Marlfus wished she could taste Kurt's cooking one last time, when suddenly she heard his voice. Kurt and Lieselot tunneled into the fortress from beneath the floor, as if for decorating the place. Marlfus assumed Kurt already knew about the assassination attempt on the princess, since he had brought her along, but Kurt, oblivious as ever, only asked why Marlfus was targeting Lieselot. She confessed her involvement and revealed Bishop Tristan's schemes. Meanwhile, Kurt mistook the demon lord's magic circle for another case of messy graffiti, concludes that Marlfus is working with the graffiti culprit and stayed behind to clean it up while Lieselot went to find Yulicia. To Marlfus' astonishment, Kurt easily erased the circle, something she had thought impossible. This sudden cleanup disrupted the demon lord, forcing him to dodge Alriad and Yulicia's attacks. Yulicia tried another magic stone, but the demon lord tossed it aside with disdain. Just as the battle turned grim, Lieselot appeared. The demon lord struck at her, and for a moment, everyone thought she had been slain. But to their shock, she was untouched. The short sword Kurt had crafted, which she named Butterfly, contained an enchantment that created illusory doubles to protect her. With the magic circle erased, the demon lord became vulnerable, and Lieselot, using one of Kurt's crystals, banished him and his undead army. Yulicia scolded Lieselot for making them believe she was dead, though she also thanked her for saving their lives. Kurt, blissfully unaware of the bigger picture, shared his rice balls with Marlfus. Unintentionally, this meal lifted her curse. Apparently, his cooking was strong enough to cleanse dark magic too. Marlfus was promptly arrested by Phantom for her role in the attacks. On their way back to the Atelier, Yulicia and Lieselot clung to Kurt's arms, and for the first time he truly felt happy to have friends and a place to return to. Later, Kurt cooked a celebratory feast for the army. The atmosphere was strangely quiet and Kurt assumed the food was terrible. But Auriad revealed the truth. Everyone was silent because the food was so good, their mouths were too busy to speak. To top it off, the dishes healed their injuries, leaving everyone astonished. Elsewhere, Margrave Tycone paid a visit to his prisoner, the demon girl Hildegard. While the Atelier is traveling to a village suffering from drought, Kurt recalls meeting a girl in his childhood who initially ignored him because her father told her not to talk to people from Hast village. Eventually, she introduced herself as Hildegard, and the two became friends. During one of their forest outings, Hildegard ate poisonous berries, forcing Kurt to make an antidote to save her life. In the present, villagers explain to Yulicia that all their water resources have dried up, and though the neighboring village still has some, they refuse to share. Yulicia visits the neighboring village, only to discover they too are suffering from drought. While this stalemate drags on, a commotion breaks out on a nearby hill. When Yulicia investigates, she finds Kurt casually using an underground spring to create a massive lake, solving both villages' problems in one go. The villagers, of course, thank Yulicia instead, assuming she saved them. Before they leave, the grateful villagers gift them baskets of waterfowl eggs, because apparently eggs solve everything. Meanwhile, Lieselot and Auriad visit Tycone to report a recent demon attack. Lieselot suspects Tycone will try to win her over to increase his influence, so she arrives as Atelier's representative. Tycone questions her about the magic crystals, but dismisses them as rumors, which is convenient for protecting Kurt. Since the frontier town lacks a name, Tycone insists that their anonymous Meister be appointed viceroy of the frontier. Lieselot protests, knowing this would expose Kurt, but Auriad sides with Tycone. When Tycone suggests that Lieselot's opposition means there might be flaws in the Meister, she immediately flips sides and praises him to the heavens, ending up agreeing with Tycone's decision anyway. Later, Lieselot informs Yulicia of this and wonders if they should appoint a fake Meister as cover. Yulicia says that Kurt is busy taking care of one of the gifted eggs, which is about to hatch. Right on cue, Kurt shouts that the egg has hatched. At the same time, Mimiko discovers that Tristan has been assassinated by unknown accomplices for his repeated failures. Back at the Atelier, things take a bizarre turn when one of Kurt's eggs mysteriously hatches, not into a chick, but into a 3-year-old girl who looks exactly like him. Yulicia points out that humans cannot be born from eggs and immediately suspects the girl is a monster. She insists Kurt hand her over so she can kill her. She snatches the girl from him, but Kurt refuses and declares he will raise her himself. To complicate matters further, the girl readily accepts Kurt, Yulicia, and Lieselot as her parents, and even calls Senna her big sister. Yulicia remains convinced she is a monster, but Kurt stands firm, and when Sakura sides with him, Yulicia reluctantly backs down. The group then debates names for the girl. Yulicia and Lieselot suggest blending their initials with Kurt's, but quickly start arguing over whose letter should come first. While they bicker, the girl wakes up and they suddenly stop arguing. Seeing this, Kurt names her Akuri. Later, Yulicia submits Akuri's DNA to Phantom to identify her species. The next morning, Kurt builds Akuri her own bedroom, which conveniently doubles as a Mithro-reinforced cell, just in case she really is a monster with escape artist tendency. On their next journey, Kurt looks unusually worried, so Yulicia tells him to just finish the job quickly so they can return to Akuri. Somehow, Akuri sneaks her way into their carriage, despite Senna supposedly watching over her. Yulicia, exasperated, instructs a Phantom to notify Atelier about Akuri's unexpected field trip. When they arrive at their next job, they are stunned to discover that their assignment is nothing less than defeating the Demon King. After that shocking announcement, Kurt and Yulicia meet their actual client, the daughter of the old wannabe Doom Prophet, who explains that her father-in-law just loves making dramatic proclamations. To their surprise, she even refers to Kurt and Yulicia as newlyweds. Yulicia turns red like a tomato, while Kurt assumes she's furious over the misunderstanding and quietly panics inside. The client then reveals their actual task: revitalizing the appetite of her farm's pigs. Kurt quickly diagnoses the problem and whips up a special feed mix, while Yulicia remains frozen in shock, still reeling from the newlywed remark. Kurt of course assumes she's still sulking. The pigs hungrily devour the feed mix, but the smell also attracts an immature dragon. Yulicia, thinking disaster is at hand, rushes to protect Kurt and Akuri, only for Kurt to calmly stop her and remark that it's perfectly normal in his village for dragons to show up at feeding time. Yulicia suddenly smells blood and discovers an injured phantom on the ground. Following the trail, she confronts a sinister dark-skinned woman who demands Akuri. Kurt joins her but mistakes the stranger for a dragon hunter. Yulicia urges him to take Akuri to safety, and the tamed dragon obliges by carrying them away. Left to face the intruder, Yulicia realizes she is outmatched. She fakes an injury and strikes back with a magic stone, but the woman easily withstands it and reveals herself to be a demon. The demon taunts Yulicia, saying she knows they recently defeated a demon lord. Brought to her knees, Yulicia takes solace in the thought that Kurt and Akuri are safe. But to her shock, Kurt reappears, this time riding in with the dragon. The dragon promptly tosses Kurt into the middle of the fight like an overconfident package delivery. Kurt, thinking quickly, unleashes a horde of pigs as a distraction, allowing them to escape. He admits he can't fight but still vows to protect his precious ones, which makes Yulicia realize that somewhere along the chaos, she may have actually fallen for him. Their escape is cut off when the demon blocks their path with fire magic. Yulicia borrows Kurt's dagger to shield him, but before the battle can end in flames, Akuri suddenly appears out of nowhere, forcing the demon woman to break off the fight and escape. Kurt tends to Yulicia's wounds and deduces that Akuri must have arrived through teleportation, an advanced spell normally only possible with a teleportation stone. When asked to repeat it, Akuri simply shrugs. Apparently magic shortcuts don't work on demand. On the way back, Yulicia asks Akuri if she was the one who blocked the demon's magic, but Akuri firmly denies it. Just then, Kurt returns, dragging the unconscious demon woman, explaining that he finds her heavily injured and nurses her back to health, but also incapacitates her to face punishment. When he casually mentions his childhood demon girlfriend Hildegard to her, he notices the woman's unusually strong reaction to that name. When they finally return to the Atelier, a worried Sina and Lieselot rush to meet them. Akuri apologizes for vanishing so suddenly, but before the reunion can settle, a handsome young man appears. To everyone's surprise, Lieselot introduces him as the Atelier Master, a man who looks strikingly like an adult version of Kurt. The man introduces himself as Rikuto, the Atelier Meister. Yulicia immediately suspects him of being fake and asks Kurt to prepare dinner while sending Sina to look after Akuri. As soon as they leave, Rikuto suddenly jumps on Yulicia, only for her to smack him down and realize the truth. This so-called Meister is nothing more than an illusion created by Lieselot's sword, showing Kurt as a dashing young adult. Of course, Kurt himself remains totally oblivious to this. They then learn that Mimiko has returned with Akuri's reports. When questioned, Mimiko admits she doesn't really know much. According to her findings, Akuri's DNA is human, and she looks, talks, and even eats just like one. However, her fingernails contain crystals attuned to ancient teleportation magic, meaning she isn't completely human after all. Mimiko bluntly suggests sealing her away or locking her up, but Kurt quickly protests, insisting that just as Mimiko trusts him, he trusts Akuri, who would never harm anyone. After some convincing, Mimiko relents and agrees to let Akuri stay at Kurt's place. Mimiko then pays a visit to the imprisoned demon woman, but the woman refuses to speak with her, saying she will only talk to Kurt, the one who defeated her. When Kurt arrives, she immediately asks if he knows Hildegard, and Kurt admits he does. The demon woman reveals her true motive. She needs to rescue her mistress, Hildegard, who has been imprisoned by Margrave Tycone. When asked why she went after Akuri, she explains that Tycone had been investigating the Atelier. While trailing them, she saw Akuri suddenly appear from nowhere and thought to use her teleportation magic to reach Hildegard. To prove her honesty, she shows them her pendant engraved with a griffin crest, claiming it came from Hildegard. Coincidentally, Kurt's dagger also bears the same crest, a gift from Hildegard herself. With that proof, Mimiko agrees they should rescue Hildegard, but only if the woman stays in the Atelier. Kurt promises her that he will save Hildegard, and for the first time, the woman gives them her name, Soulflare. Mimiko then presents Tycone's mansion layout. She explains that Tycone once had a wife and daughter, but his wife died 10 years ago, and his daughter was supposedly dead for several years as well. Now he lives alone. Phantom reports there is a mysterious room in the mansion that only Tycone himself can open, leading them to believe Hildegard may be imprisoned inside. To get in, they will need to trick the Margrave into opening the door. Lieselot suggests using an illusory thief to lure Tycone into unlocking the room. For this, Rikuto's illusion will be used to arrange a meeting. The plan is set to coincide with a 3-day festival. Lieselot will go on a date mission with Kurt on the first day, Yulicia will take the second day, and on the third, they will launch their rescue of Hildegard. On the first day, Lieselot and Akuri accompany Kurt to the festival. Kurt admits he has never truly enjoyed such events because of his duties as a maintenance worker for the flaming Dragon Fang. Still, he hopes Akuri can experience the joy of it, so Lieselot ensures they spend the day going from stall to stall, playing games, and eating delicious food until both are smiling ear to ear. Lieselot plans to confess her feelings, but just as the moment seems perfect, Kurt notices Taekon's castle looming in the distance. Remembering his promise to save Hildegard, Kurt laments that he feels powerless. The mood shatters instantly, and Lieselot swallows her confession, instead telling him that she and everyone at the Atelier deeply respect and care for him, and they will continue to support him no matter what. Though she hides her disappointment, Kurt's grateful smile warms her heart. Lieselot silently vows that next time she will definitely confess. To replace the weapon broken in the fight with the Demon Lord, Kurt forged Yulicia a sword made of mithril and adamantite. The master craftsmen at first doubted Kurt's ability but were shocked to see the masterpiece he produced. Feeling both humbled and inspired, the craftsman decided to go on a journey to further hone his own skills. Yulicia, overjoyed, named her new weapon Snowflake. Yulicia was excited for her festival date with Kurt and had planned to take him to several fun spots. However, before she could even begin, she noticed a group of thugs harassing a stall owner. Yulicia wanted to ignore it for the sake of her date, but Kurt, being Kurt, stepped right into the middle of the dispute. The thugs accused the meat bun seller of using poor ingredients, so Kurt calmly bought one of the buns and deduced that the quality was perfectly fine. Infuriated, the thugs tried to strike him but bolted the moment Yulicia mentioned he was from the Atelier. The meat bun seller was badly injured, so Kurt carried him to the hospital, leaving Yulicia standing alone with her plans already half ruined. As if things couldn't get worse, she spotted Phantom, who slyly hinted that Gargel, Taekon's favorite chef, had sent the thugs because he feared losing the upcoming food stall competition to the humble bun seller. Furious that her precious date had been spoiled, Yulicia swore revenge. Kurt returned with the unfortunate news that the stall owner had several broken bones and wouldn't recover anytime soon. Yulicia, however, was determined. She convinced Kurt that they would take on Gargel in the competition themselves. With the original stall's confections destroyed, Yulicia asks Kurt to create a brand new sweet bun using only ingredients available at the festival and even teach the stall owner's daughter Luna. During the competition, the judges were impressed by Gargel's donuts and seemed ready to hand him the victory, especially since it appeared he had already bribed the main judge. Just when defeat seemed certain, word spread among the crowd about the special buns being sold at Kurt's stall. The judges decided to investigate, and after tasting the buns they were blown away by the flavor. Even Gargel himself tried one and was forced to admit it was delicious, though he still desperately asked the judge to pick him. Unfortunately for him, the judge not only refused but also returned the bribe money with disgust. Gargel then demanded to know how Kurt could have possibly made such high-quality buns in such a short time. Yulicia proudly explained that the buns were steamed using a hot spring, and it was only possible because of Kurt's ingenuity. Gargel tried to accuse them of illegally digging the hot spring without Taekon's permission, but Yulicia quickly produced official authorization from Princess Lieselot herself. Running out of options, Gargel attempted to hire the thugs again, only for them to reveal their true identities, Lieselot and Phantom in magical disguises. Yulicia triumphantly exposed Gargel's secret activities, pointing out that they already knew he had been sending chefs into Taekon's mansion for shady dealings. Gargel then made the mistake of trying to attack Lieselot, unaware of her true status, and was swiftly arrested. His punishment was life imprisonment, leaving Taekon without a chef just as he had an important meeting scheduled with Lieselot the very next day. When the meeting came, Taekon insisted on meeting Rikudo directly. Panicked over his lack of a chef, he hastily appointed Kurt, the contest winner, as the new cook for his mansion. Meanwhile, Yulicia and Lieselot discussed their plan to infiltrate the secret room. To prepare, Rikudo assured Kurt that he would save Hildegard. It was revealed that to create an illusion, the sword had to be drawn, so Lieselot cleverly created two illusions, one for herself and one for Rikudo, while keeping her real body invisible to interact with objects through Rikudo. Finally, on the third day, Yulicia and Lieselot set out for Taekon's mansion, ready to rescue Hildegard. But just as the plan was set in motion, Phantom rushed in with urgent news. Kurt had been forcibly dragged into Taekon's kitchen as the mansion's new chef, with Akuri taken along as well. Earlier, when Kurt was preparing to open the bun shop, some knights arrived to take him to Taekon's mansion as a temporary chef. While getting ready, he shared some buns with the knights, and to their shock, all their fatigue instantly vanished. Once inside the Margrave's mansion, the guards told him to stay in the kitchen while Taekon had a meeting with the princess. Meanwhile, Lieselot and Rikudo met with Tycoon, while Yulicia worried about Kurt, hoping he wouldn't do anything unnecessary. Of course, with Kurt that was always wishful thinking. Kurt wanted to search for Hildegard but hesitated, knowing it might cause trouble for Yulicia and Lieselot. Akuri then offered her help, and thanks to her, Kurt got past the inaccessible areas and easily opened the door to the so-called impregnable room. However, instead of Hildegard, he found an elderly woman who looked quite unwell. Akuri shared her bun with the woman, and Kurt realized that the woman is only looking older, but in actuality she is younger. The woman admitted she wasn't truly old but was suffering from a strange curse or illness. When Kurt asked about Hildegard, the woman revealed she was being held captive one floor below. Kurt, being Kurt, considered digging straight through the floor with his hard bread, but the woman wisely showed him a secret passage instead. Meanwhile, in the meeting, Lieselot stepped outside and tricked Tycoon into believing he was alone with Rikudo. She overheard Tycoon rambling about eternal youth. He explained that since demons live for thousands of years, it should be possible to extend human life by transplanting demon cells into humans, though this was completely illegal. From his desperation, Lieselot realized Tycoon wasn't chasing youth for himself but for someone else. Soon after, she and Yulicia staged a fake break-in and followed Tycoon as he rushed to the secret room. Lieselot follows him. To her shock, Tycoon called out the name Famil, his daughter who was supposedly dead for years. At the same time, the mysterious woman led Kurt to Hildegard's cell. Kurt was overjoyed to see her after so many years. After freeing her, he quickly noticed she hadn't changed a bit. Hildegard, however, blamed him for her imprisonment, explaining she hadn't aged since he had cured her of poison with a potion made from rainbow flowers. Hildegard complained of hunger, but the only thing Kurt had was his unyielding hard bread, completely useless since she couldn't even bite it. Hildegard then asked him to make a youth potion for the woman, but Kurt refused, saying rainbow flowers no longer existed. It was then that he discovered the woman was none other than Famil, Tycoon's supposedly dead daughter. She explained her death was just a cover story, as her father couldn't bear to see his daughter grow old. Suddenly, the pieces began fitting together. Tycoon had kidnapped Hildegard and was obsessed with eternal youth. Before Kurt could process that, Tycoon showed up. But in classic Kurt fashion, he drew the worst possible conclusion, deciding that Tycoon was a lolicon who planned to replace his aging daughter with Hildegard, who would remain young forever. Astounded by his idiocy, Hildegard had had enough. She paralyzed Kurt on the spot just so the adults could have a sane conversation. Despite everything, Famil, racked with her rapid aging disease, asked Hildegard to kill Tycoon. Hearing this, Tycoon flees but is confronted by Lieselot and Yulicia. Lieselot reveals that his daughter has been afflicted by rapid aging and also exposes his experiments to obtain eternal youth for her. Tycoon confesses but declares that he is still willing to sell even his own soul to demons if it means saving Famil. He then attempts to summon a demon, but the magic circle fails to activate. Lieselot explains that this is because the newly dug hot spring diverted the flow of magic. Tycoon, shocked, accuses Lieselot of already knowing his plan and deliberately having Kurt dig the hot spring. At that moment, Hildegard arrives and she and Lieselot exchange sharp words over Kurt. Hildegard explains that she left Kurt to rest because she didn't want him to witness what she was about to do, kill Tycoon. She insists that if they let him live, he will summon demons again, leading to countless innocent deaths, exactly why Famil also wishes for his death. Tycoon shouts that he has sacrificed everything, even countless souls, for the sake of saving his daughter. Suddenly, Famil intervenes, her body restored to youth thanks to Kurt's meat buns. Meanwhile, with Akuri's help, Kurt manages to undo his paralysis. Tycoon then breaks down and apologizes to Lieselot for his crimes. But Lieselot declares that as a member of the royal family she cannot overlook his deeds. Still acting in her role as an Atelier trainee, she sentences Tycoon to support the Atelier as punishment. Just then, the demon scriptor appears, the very one who handed Hildegard over to Tycoon and taught him demon summoning. He reveals that he hoped Hildegard's disappearance would spark her people into waging war against humans. Hildegard, however, explains that she had already forbidden such a war. Scriptor then admits to being the one who cursed Famil, assassinated Bishop Tristan, and cursed Lieselot. Yulicia immediately attacks him, and Scriptor recognizes her sword, Snowflake, as a holy blade. He retreats, but not before resummoning the defeated Demon Lord. The Demon Lord disarms Yulicia and casts her holy sword aside, weakening the group. They struggle against him, and Lieselot realizes that as a spiritual being, the demon grows stronger with negative emotions. They must remain fearless to weaken him. After Hildegard's paralysis is undone, Kurt and Akuri appear. Showing no fear, Kurt declares that it has been a long time since he last saw a Demon Lord and thought they had vanished. The Demon Lord, enraged, thinks Kurt is mocking him and launches an attack. Akuri uses teleportation magic to counter. When the Demon Lord strikes again, Yulicia recovers Snowflake and transforms his fire spell into her own counterattack. Realizing he may be defeated, the Demon Lord unleashes another desperate blow. Hildegard is nearly struck down, but is saved by a rock-hard bread that Kurt gave her, which is strong enough to block the Demon Lord's attack. The Demon Lord, recognizing Kurt as someone from Hast village, flees in shock. Kurt explains that Demon Lords often attacked Hast, so its villagers grew skilled at defeating them. Meanwhile, Scripter's summoning circle tries to draw in 100 souls as payment for summoning the Demon Lord. To everyone's astonishment, it instead seizes Kurt's meat buns and vanishes. Later, Taekon's aide secretly reports this to Bandana. The church keeps the incident hidden, fearing the implications. Theoretically, Kurt could summon infinite demons using meat buns instead of human sacrifices. Taekon publicly announces Fomal's survival, while Hildegard returns to her homeland with Soul Flare. Bandana arrives in Hast and concludes that Kurt is even more powerful than he appears, and also suspects that Akuri is connected to the mythical Great Sage. Meanwhile, the ex-leader of Dragon Fang also seems to be seeking Bandana. When Kurt and the others return to Atelier, Taekon rewards them. He grants Kurt the rank of knight, elevates Yulicia to Baroness, and appoints Rikudo as Viceroy of the Frontier, all just as Lieselot had wished. She whispers to Yulicia that one day she intends to make her Margrave of the town. Returning to her homeland with Soul Flare, Hildegard finds the orichalcum flower Kurt had gifted her and recalls how it has been 1,200 years since they first met as children. In the end, as everyone eats together, Kurt tries to return to his handyman duties. But Rikudo announces that he will be leaving for a while and appoints Lieselot as proxy viceroy and Kurt as proxy Atelier Meister. Everyone accepts the decision warmly, saying it perfectly natural.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. If you have any suggestions or questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Until next time, take care.